Across 5 generations between 1978 and 2001, the Honda Prelude was consistently among the best handling front-wheel drive coupes available and consistently was a technological showcase for Honda, including VTEC, 4-wheel steering, and an early version of their super handling all-wheel drive system. But by the 2000s, its popularity had waned and it was quietly discontinued. Until now. Welcome back to All Cars, y'all. If you're new here, my name is John, and this is a far too brief history of the Honda Prelude. Honda had experience with sporty cars from the 1960s with their S500, S600, and S800, ancestors of the later S2000, as well as their coupe 1300 in the early 1970s. Inspired by Toyota's successful formula with their Celica, taking a small car, putting a bigger engine in it, and a new body with a short rear deck and a long hood, which sounds a lot to me like the formula for the original Mustang. In the 1970s, Honda created a new chassis for a sporty car, with a modified Accord body and the 4-wheel independent McPherson strut suspension, brakes, and engine from the Accord. Originally launched in Japan in 1978 as part of a new dealership sales channel called the Honda Verno, intended for more performance-oriented products, the Prelude name itself continued a Honda trend at the time of naming cars after musical terms, such as the Honda Quint, the Honda Ballade, and the Accord itself. The Prelude was previewed at the Amsterdam International Auto Show in 1979 and was released in the US in March of 1979. While the standard engine outside the US was a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder, America got a 1.8-liter CVCC making 72 horsepower, and the car notably came with a standard moonroof, a Prelude feature for every generation, and they were the first cars with engines under 2 liters to get standard power steering. A 5-speed manual was standard, and initially the car offered a 2-speed Honda-matic semi-automatic, but this was replaced by October of that year with a 3-speed auto. The instrument panel held a single central gauge cluster with speedometer and a tach all-in-one and was controversial. In 1980, the Prelude got the CVCC2 engine with catalytic converter and power increased slightly to 75, and in 1981 it received a modest facelift and a more standard-looking dashboard. This generation was not a fantastic success, with only moderate performance and handling and a somewhat high price.
The Honda Prelude, a sports car for grown-ups.
But sales were solid in the US with 38,000 its first year and climbing to about 55,000 in 1982. The second generation Prelude really began to identify as the high-tech, great-handling showcase car for Honda, at least before the NSX later. This generation was released in Japan in 1982 and went worldwide in 83 with an all-new platform, a new sleeker wedge-shaped look including its iconic pop-up headlights. Front suspension was redesigned to a new double wishbone design with the rear keeping its McPherson struts. The engine was tilted back to allow for a lower hood, and the 83 model came with painted steel wheels, while from 84 on it received Civic wheel covers. The dash was unique but standard Honda for the time, placing some controls around the binnacle, some between the HVAC vents, and adding a clock at the base of the window, common in Hondas for the time. On release, the engine was a 1.8-liter 12-valve 4 making 100 horsepower, with an optional 12-valve fuel-injected 2-liter appearing for the 86 model year on the SI model, good for 110 horsepower, and requiring a lightly modified hood to fit. A 5-speed manual and 4-speed auto were available, and performance improved considerably. Sales also increased to 83,000 in 86 before falling slightly to 80,000 in 87. The third generation was released for 88 in the US, stepping up the technology of the car. While redesigned, the look remained familiar, including those pop-up headlights, but the look was smoothed out to improve the drag coefficient to 0.34. The 4-wheel independent suspension was now double wishbone at each wheel. Interestingly, to help improve aerodynamics, the hood was 1.2 inches lower, achieved primarily by tilting the engine backwards a full 18 degrees, and Honda claimed it was the lowest hood of any front-wheel drive car. Inside glass area was up nearly 20%. The dash was sports-oriented and retained the dash-mounted clock. The big news was the all-mechanical four-wheel steering system introduced using front and rear steering racks connected by a shaft, a system that promised better handling in a more reliable and cost-effective way than the electronic systems other manufacturers would be unveiling. Turning the steering wheel up to 246 degrees, and the rear wheels would turn up to 1.5 degrees in the same direction. The intention was to improve handling at higher speeds. But turn the wheel more than that and the rear wheels will turn up to 5 1/3 degrees in the opposite direction, improving maneuverability at low speeds, such as when parking or helping the Prelude see a 33-foot turning circle. In Japan, Honda expected 30% of buyers to take the four-wheel steering system, but it was a massive success, with 80% of buyers opting for it in the first year. The engines at the time were variants of Honda's B20A, while the base remained a 2-liter 12-valve carbureted single overhead cam version making 104 horsepower, and the sportier SI trims getting a dual overhead cam, fuel-injected 16-valve 2.1-liter version of the engine with 135. The car was given a mild refresh for 90, including boosting the power of the dual overhead cam engine to 140. A 5-speed manual remained standard with an optional 4-speed auto with sport shift as an option. Confusingly, the base trim was the Prelude 2.0S with the 12-valve carbureted engine. The Prelude 2.0 SI got a fuel-injected and 16-valve version making 145 horsepower, and the Prelude SI got the upgraded 2.1-liter 140 horsepower engine with the option of four-wheel steering. Sales began falling steadily with this generation, from a peak of 76,000 its first year to 67,000 in 1991. For the fourth generation, introduced in 92, the look changed dramatically and abandoned the pop-up headlights while going for a larger and much softer look overall. The moonroof was now steel and slid on the outside so as to increase interior headroom. For that interior, Honda went for an all-new and somewhat controversial look with a horizontal dash like you'd find in an old Oldsmobile, and which they even referred to in literature as, quote, a very distinct atmosphere. The four-wheel independent double wishbone suspension remained, as did four-wheel steering, but it was now electronic, and Honda's new VTEC engine made this the best performing Honda besides their NSX. There were two trim levels at this time, S and SI, with the SI now getting standard ABS. The carbureted engine was dropped, making the base engine a now 2.2-liter 16-valve 4, making 135 horsepower, and a 2.3-liter version making 160 horsepower, with a standard 5-speed or, again, a 4-speed auto. In 1993, the VTEC engine was an option for the SI, a 2.2-liter Singer, making 190 horsepower. Unfortunately, sales continued to slide, bottoming out in 1996 with only 42,000 sold. For 97, Honda once again changed the styling dramatically, with much larger headlights mimicking the pop-ups of before and a more creased, less swoopy body. Inside, the car got a much more conventional layout and instrument cluster. Engines were simplified to just a 2.2-liter 4 making 195 horsepower and mated to either a 5-speed manual or, surprise, 4-speed automatic, where power was down to 190 horsepower. The four-wheel steering was dropped, but the Prelude as a technological showcase continued with the new Type SH for super handling, using Honda's active torque transfer system and with the manual transmission only. It was heavy, expensive, unreliable, and unpopular. For 2001, the VTEC made 200 horsepower or 195 with the automatic. With the rise in popularity of SUVs and increasingly buyers' desires to have 4 doors when they actually have 4 seats, see also the rise of SUVs and 4-door pickup trucks, sales of this generation continued their freefall from 33,000 in 1997 to just 5,000 in 2002. As an upcoming 2026 model, Honda is returning with a new 6th generation Prelude, this time based on the Civic. Swoopy and sexy with hints of Porsche in the rear and the Z-Car in profile, this time it combines the 200 horsepower hybrid powertrain of the Civic on a shortened Civic platform with the Civic's Type R suspension and a conventional Honda interior and no manual transmission. At the time of recording this, there is no price that's been released. The Prelude was a victim of the rise of the SUV and the decline in popularity of the two-door sports car, and it exists as an interesting package. It was never outrageously powerful. It was always front-wheel drive, so it was never a pure sports car. At the same time, it was a showcase for Honda's technology. It was stylish, and it avoided looking like an extra in a Fast and the Furious movie. It traded outright racing for refinement, leaning towards less of a sports car, but not quite a grand tourer at the same time. And this all may be to its detriment. While the Civic is famous for its ability to be modded, and the Integra is a legend in its own time and has massive name recognition, the Prelude has been largely forgotten except by fans. With the preview of the upcoming Prelude, opinions are mixed. A lot of criticism has been leveled at it for it being based on a Civic, for its hybrid powertrain, and for the fact that powertrain makes 200 horsepower, essentially making the same power as the last generation Prelude almost 25 years ago. So much for Honda's technological edge, but we'll see how much demand there is for a small Honda and a Prelude once again. I, for one, am looking forward to it. Thanks so much for being here and spending a few minutes with me, and thanks to my patrons for supporting this channel and helping making videos like this possible. If you like this video, be sure to check out this one right here. I bet you'll like it too. Thanks for being here, y'all.